Venugopal, am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Good evening. It is audible now. It's slightly feeble, but yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Aswathy Dilip, the National Lead for Complete Streets at the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. It's a pleasure for all of us at ITDP India Programme and the Smart Cities mission to invite all of you for the very first workshop of the Streets for People Challenge. First, let me take a minute to highlight a few housekeeping rules for everyone here. Participants and panelists feel free to chat and interact with each other in the chat box throughout the discussion. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box. Our team will shortlist these questions for the Q&A session. And finally, if you really find one of the questions very interesting, you can also upvote it to bring them to our attention. So what is the agenda for today? We have with us Mr. Kunal Kumar, IAS, Joint Secretary, Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, who will deliver the introductory address. He has mentioned that he's going to be a little late and will be joining us in 10 minutes. Following that, we will take you for an e-tour of 4 cities across India, from Amritsar to Chennai to Delhi and to Udaipur. We will listen to stories of transformation from the ground, from the champions themselves. For this discussion, we have with us from Amritsar, Mr. Ritesh Roshan, Senior Urban Transportation Expert, Nodal Officer, Amritsar City. From Chennai, we're joined by Mr. Meghnatha Reddy, IAS Deputy Commissioner Works and Revenue and Finance, Greater Chennai Corporation. From Delhi, we have Mr. Pradeep Bansal, Chief Engineer, North Delhi Municipal Corporation, and Mr. Anuj Malhotra, CEO, Center for Green Mobility. And finally, from Udaipur, we have Kamar-ul-Zaman Chowdhury, IAS Commissioner, Udaipur Municipal Corporation, and CEO, Smart Cities Projects. This discussion will be followed by the presentation of the day on how to identify pilot locations for the challenge by Shreya Gadepalli, South Asia Program Lead, ITDP, followed by a Q&A session. And finally, I'll be wrapping up today's session with a brief presentation on building momentum for pedestrianization initiatives and garnering public support. So let me start with our first presentation. Second.
Shall I start?
Just taking a second. Benu, is my screen clear?
Yes, Aswathy. If you can make it full screen, it's good to go. Yeah.
Can you see my screen, Venu?
Yes. Yeah.
I assume that all of you all can see my screen. So this is a street that you could see in any city in India. Do you think this street is safe for its pedestrians? In fact, a third to about 50% of our trips are primarily by walk on most of our Indian cities. And another third, people actually walk for the first mile and last mile connectivity from and after their public transportation stops. So if there's a street like this, would you actually feel like walking or spending time on this particular street? Can you walk on such a footpath? These are some questions that we must ask before we start working on this particular project. So here, I'd like to put a poll towards each one of you. And the question that we'd like to ask is that what are the reasons why most of you thought that you may not prefer walking on the streets shown in the images above? Is it about discontinuous and broken footpaths? Is that about unorganized parking? Was it about the lack of sufficient lighting or encroachment of our footpaths with vendors, for example, or just the lack of cleanliness? So the results are actually coming up right now. And I really encourage all of you all to take this. So as I'm seeing, I can see that almost about 85% of all of you believe that discontinuous and broken footpaths are one of the most important problems that we do need to take up. Next is the issue of encroachment on our footpaths, followed by the fact that they're actually unclean, and also the need for us to look at unorganized parking. And last but not the least, sufficient lighting is also something that's very, very important. So let me just share the results with all of you. Now, what if you looked at a street like this? What is the kind of imagination that comes into each of your minds? How about walking on a street like this? Does it, want you to stay here and spend a little more time out here? Stop. What about this street? Would you like to sit here with your friends and family and, spend some time chit-chatting, catching up with things that happened in the day? Would you feel comfortable and confident bringing your children onto streets like these and letting them play to their heart's fill? On a street like this, would you feel confident with your family members, your elderly, your young children, women, walking, even if it is in the night? So what are the reasons that most of us would feel very comfortable about walking and spending a lot of time on the streets that were shown above? So here again, this is a poll, and I'd really appreciate if all of you all could take this. So is it about clean, continuous, wide footpaths, or shaded pathways with trees and shrubs, availability for places for seating, adequate lighting, or the fact of having colorful play elements for our children? So just waiting to have the results. So I encourage all of you all to take this poll. So we have about 54% of all of you all who said that, one of the most important basic requirements is the fact that we need to have continuous, clean, and wide footpaths. Of course, all the other elements play a very important role in ensuring that these footpaths are not just used for walking, but are also great places for us to stay and spend time. So shaded pathways, places for seating, adequate lighting, as well as play equipments for children. So such streets are actually streets that are safe, healthy, and happy. And through the Streets for People challenge, we invite each one of you all to transform every street in your city into safe, healthy streets. These streets, which are prioritized for pedestrians, help in improving walkability as well as enhancing livability. In addition to improving walking, these streets can actually save jobs and increase retail sales by up to 30%. They help in reducing speeding by 16% and reducing accidents by a whopping 26%. And in fact, there have been studies that show that such streets help in reducing crime on streets by almost 96%. So why should we be redesigning our streets as streets for people right now? As green recovery from COVID-19, our cities need safe and accessible open public spaces. As each one of us step out to access our goods and services, it's very, very important for us to be confident that these spaces are safe. It's very important for our health as well as our recreation. Through this entire period where most of us have been cocooned inside the four walls of our house, it's especially important for us to have opportunities to spend time safely externally. And last but not the least, for our mental well-being, it's very, very important that these sort of spaces are created in our cities. So it is time for us to reimagine our streets as safe, healthy, and happy streets for all. We are very happy to welcome each one of you all to the Streets for People Challenge. So we are waiting for Mr. Kunal Kumar to join us. And I think we in fact have Mr. Kunal Kumar with us. Sir, are you here, sir? So I think your mic is not connected.
Is it connected now?
So it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Kunal Kumar, IIS, Joint Secretary, Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, to deliver the introductory address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aswathy. And
so we can't hear you, sir. I think your mic is not connected. We can see you very well, which is most often the issue generally. But we can see you very, very well, but we cannot hear you, sir.
I think it is audible.
Ashwati, it is audible right now. I think
it's just an issue of connecting to the audio.
Is it Rahul, a problem at my end, or is it a problem at Aswathy?
No, I think it is fairly audible and the video is also clear. So
yeah, I'll continue the message to Ashwati, Kunal sir. This is Venugopal from ITDP. I think there seems to be an network error at her end. Yeah. Please go on, sir.
Okay. Anyway, so very warm welcome to everyone on this call. I do not know how many cities have been able to participate, but I hope everyone is there. We have seen tremendous leadership from all of you going into the Cycles for Change challenge. Honestly, when we started it, we were very skeptical because we had the COVID background in mind, and we all knew that since COVID had jammed most of our work for 2-3 months, as soon as you get a bit of relief from it, most of you will get busy with moving already stalled things. But all said and done, I think that's the beauty of a spark of an idea, and sometimes some ideas, their time. We say that the time for this idea has come. I think the time for this idea about sustainable transport, about reimagining how we look at cities, because of the kind of problems we see in the way we have looked at city development so far, I think is really become has come in focus because of COVID, and I think that is one of the reasons that Cycles for Change did take off. And the city CEOs and their teams and everyone, like municipal commissioners, all the cities who have participated, I think 113 of them are registered so far, have been able to make a real connect with people and various stakeholders around that challenge. Having said that, most of this image that we create is because of the pictures and the audio and the video that all of you share on WhatsApp, and we are documenting all that. None of that is going undocumented. But then it's again between 20, 25, 30 cities who would be really prominently putting all those stuff out. And some of you would be doing some work, but may not have a great communication team, or maybe not have a great communication strategy to put that out. So add another 20 of them. But the rest of the cities also need to start, activities. It's one thing to register for a challenge, and these are not challenges where you need to tick a box. These are challenges where you need to lead. And this is where you are trying to seed a new idea. You are trying to build a coalition of partners who understands that the future of Indian cities is what is being written in the smart cities. The smart cities are laboratories. This is where you are testing, the future of how Indian cities should look like. What are the principles that should aspire for? What are the goals they should have? How sustainability, if anybody has to know the meaning of sustainable cities, they should be able to learn by the example that the smart cities set. And so it is in this background that the Streets for People challenge was launched. I have been talking about these two books, but I just want to give you a visual. I just took them out so that I'm able to show them to you. One is this book called The Walkable City, if everyone can see. This is a book by Jeff Speck. I would want everyone, when you're doing the Streets for People challenge, to take a copy of this. I think it's delivered next day in Amazon in most cities. You can buy it off the shelf also. It's available in all bookshops. This one, it will tell you why walkability is important. And most of us, like government officers, we can keep going on speaking about things. Don't believe in us. Believe in the experts. Believe in what has really happened across the world. This book will tell you how cities transformed by just being walkable. You don't need to get a big, factory or a big economic unit or maybe a big university to change the course of a city. By just making it walkable, people have transformed the lives of cities. How economies happen, how people get healthier, how people get, there's more interaction. Consequent to more interaction between people because they meet in the streets, there is this serendipity. This is about chance events happening and chance interactions happening which lead to innovative ideas. You cannot put a money value to it, and therefore it's very difficult for us to intuitively understand the importance of these things, but this is what has created the best cities in the world. And so this is the book which documents it. There are many other books about it, but I would strongly urge that if you are a leader in a city who's wanting to look at Streets for People, and you should have a doubt, why not? But you should clarify that doubt whether Streets for People will really work. These are the kinds of stuff you should know, should read. This is research, this is actual practice, and this will tell you what it is. The second book that I keep talking about is this book called Street Fight. And if you can see on top what it is saying, it says it's the handbook for an urban revolution. And it doesn't say just for the sake of it. I think if we as a collective are able to do 20% of what is being talked about in this book, we would really be able to make a big dent in the way we look at our cities. This is a book which is written again by a practitioner, someone who has headed the transport department in a city called New York for about 8 years and has done a lot of transformation there. I would like us to guard against point activities. Don't think of what is a point activity. I took the street, I pedestrianized it. This is the max I'm going to do on Streets for People. No. We have to realize one pedestrianized street is very important because seeing is believing. But that's just the beginning of the road. You have to look at a systemic way of making change. Can you as a city devise an innovative strategy to fund sustainable transport? Can you, for example, have a parking charges or maybe some other way of ring fencing a part of the property tax, or maybe some other way of generating resources which can be parked exclusively for sustainable transport? You call it the Sustainable Transport Fund for the city. Systems. Then can you have, when I was a municipal commissioner in Pune, we had started a department called the Bicycle Department. And it was actually, then I was a municipal commissioner, the minister here, who is now my minister here, and he's still my minister when I was in Pune, he tweeted about that department. I still have that tweet with me. Systems again, you have to form systems. You have to bring in a coalition of people. It's not about government departments alone. You'll have to create a stakeholder group in the city who will talk about this, go and meet people. You will have to engage with college goers who would basically do your surveys and go and talk to people on streets and find out what prevents them from being on the street. Everyone enjoys to walk, especially all Indians. We know walking and cycling is as if it's with us intuitively from birth, but we stop doing that because we find it's impossible to do it. Let's get that back again in our cities. So by talking to people, you will understand what the problems are. And as I keep mentioning, what is a smart road or a smart street? A smart road or a smart street it solves the problems that people face on that road or street. It's not a street which looks good, has great dividers, big footpaths, but nobody's walking on that. You have a great cycle lane, 6 crores a kilometer has been spent, nobody is cycling on it. That's not a smart street. So let's make systemic changes. Let's make changes which last, which people use and grow with and is beneficial for the city. So I'll stop here. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. I think credit to all our partners, ITDP and IUA, Fit India, Swachh Bharat Mission, everyone who's working with us. And this is just, the partners that I know of in Government of India, the whole host of partners who are working with you in cities, all the stakeholders, all the MoHUA committees, all the RWAs, all the other people who are supporting it. A big thank you to everyone. And I think, we should seriously, look at this, which says urban revolution. This is your shot at creating an urban revolution. Are you up to it? If you are, then make it count. So thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. And with those words, let us all create an urban revolution by transforming the life of our cities, by transforming our streets, like the way you rightly mentioned right now, sir. So let me just share my screen once again.
Yes, Aswathy, it's visible. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Just waiting for it to come up on my screen. So it's been fantastic. And like the way sir mentioned, a whopping 113 cities across the country have signed up for the Streets for People challenge, including all our 100 smart cities. Yet, like the way Kunal sir actually mentioned, Indian cities have already started reimagining their streets, whether it is Pune or Gangtok or in fact even Leh. So in the next session, we are going to hear from a few cities on their experiences from Amritsar, Chennai, Delhi, and Udaipur. And here, some of the really interesting things that sir had mentioned. Seeing is definitely believing, and hence we do need to create our pilots. But it's not just the pilots; it's about institutionalizing change, which will ensure that these pilots expand into city-wide networks, and how these cities engage with their stakeholders right from the beginning, and how these are smart streets. But these are smart streets, which are streets for people, filled with people. So let's now first invite Mr. Ritesh Roshan, Senior Urban Transportation Expert from Amritsar, to share the story of the transformation of the Heritage Park of Amritsar. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to everyone. I am Ritesh Das from Amritsar Smart City. Here I am presenting that Golden Temple Heritage Street. Why the Heritage Street is planned? Here there is two pictures. One is that before construction and another is the after construction. So it is pretty much clear that why it is planned. That before construction, you can see there is a movement of two-wheelers, auto rickshaws, and pedestrians, and it's considered as a clumsy and crowded and unorganized shape. After the construction, the scenario is drastically changed, and people can move around freely and easily, and the appearance is quietly good for the encouraging the tourists to come to the city. Basically, the benefit from this heritage street is that there is three benefits you are getting. One is, first of all, is the safety for people, as there is congestion have been decreased, that is reduction in air and noise pollution. Second one is the increase in economy for the shopkeepers, as the street is completely pedestrianized. The shopkeepers have got the opportunity to get their increase their household incomes. And third one is the attraction of the tourists. If we'll go through the website of the Punjab Tourism, after construction, that heritage street is formed in year 2016. After construction of this, the tourist attracts around double from the figure in the 2015. In come to the next slide, that is the route map. This is the circular road that can be considered as the one of the primate road in the Amritsar city, and another is the ISBT route. These are the connecting routes. And this purple color is part of that heritage street planning. In that purple color, it is that motor vehicles as well as pedestrian is allowed. And this golden color is that in that color only the pedestrian movement is allowed. And there is a blue one. Blue one is connecting to the MLCB multi-level car parking. So here we are giving the opportunity for the any local waste or any tourist who are coming to this Golden Temple. They can park their vehicle and they can roaming around freely, and they can easily enjoy that what are the appearance and what are the heritage look on the Amritsar city. These are the development activities what have been done in the Golden Heritage Street. One is the repavement of the complete roadway, that is around the length is around 800 meter. And second one is that that is pedestrian part. What I already mentioned that only that pedestrian movement is allowed between Seceretary multi-level car parking to the Golden Temple. And third one is to give a aesthetic appearance to that all the shops, around 170 shops, are giving the heritage look for the homogeneous sections. And fourth one is earlier I have shown that there is overhead wiring all everywhere there, and that have been shifted and channelized to the underground, so it looks more aesthetic. And fifth one is the lamp post have been given with the LED lights. And sixth is the sculptures and monuments, which are representing the Punjabi cultures and history and beautifications. And the pedestrian facilities like sitting arrangements, refreshment facilities, drinking facilities, Wi-Fi's. And seventh one is the safety provisions. Is every vehicular crossing points we are providing the bollards. These are some pictures. That is the first picture.
Mr. Ritesh, there seems to be a break in your audio from your side. We wait for a few seconds while Ritesh connects back.
There is the Fawara Chowk, that is the starting point of the pedestrian path.
Ritesh, we lost you for a few seconds. If you could share your screen once again. I think there was a glitch at your end. Yes, we can see your screen. You are in slide number 5, the previous one.
The first picture is the starting point of the pedestrian path. That is the Fawara Chowk. That is near to the multi-level car parking, where the people are easy access that after parking the car they can move freely. And second one is the sculptures which showing the Punjab culture. And third one is that facilities like sitting arrangements and greeneries have been provided. And fourth one is the lamp posts showing the night visibility. And fifth is the monuments is placed in the Jallianwala Bagh, which shows the historical background. And sixth is the bollards, which is considered as the safety provisions for the vehicle crossing points. And seven is the refreshment facilities with good visibility. And last one is the heritage street endpoint, which is connecting to the Amritsar Golden Temple. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritesh. It was a really interesting presentation about what's happened in Amritsar. So what we'll do is we'll have a round of presentations by the other cities as well, and then come back to questions to each of the city. And next, I'd like to invite Mr. Megnath Reddy, sir, from Chennai to make a presentation on the various aspects that Chennai has done over the years. Over to you, sir. So we also, for all of you, we kindly request all the cities to stick to about 7 minutes per presentation So we will be ringing a bell at the end of 4 minutes and then another one at the end of 6 minutes, just to remind all of you, just keeping you posted right here so that we have a good discussion after the presentations as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kunal sir, and good afternoon, other panelists and all members who have joined this discussion. Aswathy, can I have the presentation up?
Yeah, just a second, sir.
Thank you, Venu.
Yeah. I'm Meghnad Reddy, Deputy Commissioner, Revenue and Finance, also in charge for works at Greater Chennai Corporation. So next. Yeah, this picture, please go back, Justice. The earliest slide, yeah. So as you can see here, this is the Chennai's pedestrian plaza at Pondi Bazaar, one of the most iconic, spaces that has come up in Chennai now. Next. See, this is how we began. I mean, there was an experiential walk with key stakeholders, officers were there, the local public were there. So to understand the difficulties that citizens will have to go through when they negotiate the streets in our country, particularly in Chennai. Next. And we, of course, had our own study tours in India as well as abroad. This is a snapshot from our visit to Singapore to learn about NMT, non-motorized transport policy in Singapore. And this was a recent visit that we had from Greater Chennai Corporation to Bangalore to understand tender show concept at Bangalore. We had a delegation from Greater Chennai Corporation, and we had officials also from Metro Water Board Chennai. So this was a first-hand experience to understand how what is happening in Bangalore. And again, building capacity building. The idea was to ensure that it's not just the consultants or engineers or the contractors or the builders who should have an idea about the redesigning and reframing of the streets. Our engineers, our officials should first have that capacity building thing and should be sensitized about it. So this was basically aimed at doing that. Yeah, capacity building, snapshots from the capacity building. These were the first set of streets that were redeveloped in Chennai. If you can see the picture on the left is before Besant Nagar, again, one of the most prominent areas which leads to the beach there, a quite spacious area, with a lot of green cover and all. Of course, you can see encroached by parking, and there was literally no pedestrian way there. And then subsequently, once developed, the picture on the right, where you can see the space was reclaimed and the parking was streamlined. Yeah. And this is again one of the arterial roads in Chennai called Egmore Road, which is where our commissioner office is also located. And you see a lot of movement of people in around that area. If you see the picture on the left, it was before. I mean, almost literally no space. And if you can also see a BSNL box there, which has literally encroached the pathway, and people would be forced to move on the road. Now, the pathway has been expanded. It's pretty clear, and this box was pushed towards one side, redesigned and put aside, so that people can walk without any access problem. Chennai, I must say proudly that we have adopted NMT policy, non-motorized transport policy, and we are taking many steps and many measures to fulfill our goal of NMT. And so since we adopted the NMT policy way back in 2014, we have almost covered 150 kilometers of streets, to be that have been converted into complete streets. This is another thing which I'll delve, subsequently. One of the prime things we did was to build people support around what we do. When we touch arterial roads, when we touch busy areas, business districts, where there'll be a lot of business and the set notions and conservative approaches to roads, you need to build a lot of support amongst the local public to ensure that they are just not witnesses to it, but they're also stakeholders in the development of that area. Again, this is building support through public. This is from a snapshot from Mylapore. We involved police, we involved resident welfare associations and everyone. And another inbuilt concept along with the streets that we develop is to ensure that the streets that we develop and redesign should also have should be so very well part of schools and access. So it should be like safe roads to school, and this we have done again through community participation. Yeah, this is part of it. And again, this was something that we have been doing, reimagining streets as car-free and vehicle-free ones. This is a snapshot from one of the car-free Sundays which we did on at Elliott Beach, and the kind of response we got from people. Yeah, this is what we would like to highlight. The first pedestrian plaza that we developed, a truly citizen-based and citizen-involved concept. A very regular busy street turned into a public space. This is how it was. I mean, Pondi Bazaar, probably for people who would have been to Chennai and would have heard about it, this is one of our, it is part of our ABD also. Not just ABD, this is one area which attracts a lot of crowd on even regular days, leave aside festivals and weekends. Because it's like you get everything there, like the proverbial, pen to everything. So that's where we started our work to create a complete street. This was the picture before we did it. Next. And this is how we have reimagined it. The space, the width, the features that we build around it, and the upliftment, the entire area has gone through. As I said before, public consultation was at the core of what we did, because being a very thickly business-oriented space, we did find our own challenges. We did find opposition to this concept. We did find people who think that this will be against the status quo and then will have a very bad impact on them. So we had a lot of public consultation. And this is what we did. We sort of created a tactical urbanism, where before we could actually bring it in place, we created an experience where they can actually feel what would be the case if we create a happy street or a mega street or a complete street. This again at the same place, through negotiations, and then this is implementation. The phase when we started implementing it, you can easily see the way it was before. So I mean, this picture shows. I mean, it was like the cars were almost near the shops. It was such mix up there. But now everything is very defined. The path for the cars and vehicles is defined. The path for pedestrians and citizens is defined very well there. Next. And of course, this is one thing that we have always kept in mind: inclusive design for all. It should be something which everyone should enjoy. I mean, all should have equal opportunity to go there and enjoy. And we've also put in place a free shuttle service for all, priority to people with limited mobility and all. It's running very successfully there now. And vibrant street furniture again. I mean, that's another way to secure the streets. Otherwise, what will happen is we create spaces, people would come and then people would encroach then with the petty hawkers and all. So the idea was to create these spaces so that there won't be any future encroachment. Play equipments, vibrant furniture and all. So yeah, this is how you see it. If it is some festive season and all, this is like a must-visit place in Chennai now, with all its vibrancy and lighting. Of course, again, with tree cover and planters, as I said, it looks really beautiful. And again, with safer access to public transport. And this is another thing which is so very well gelled with our concept of pedestrian. This is towards one end of the pedestrian plaza. We have brought in the smart bike concept. We've all, ourselves tried doing it. It has been a fantastic experience. And for the people coming in there, this is like an added advantage and attraction. And one of our, Chennai has been pushing really hard for the on-street parking management, a streamlined and technology-enabled parking management system. And Pondi Bazaar, where we have put up this pedestrian plaza, has been one of our priority areas for streamlined parking management, and it has come up really well now. And the way forward. So I must say, it would not be out of place or exaggeration to say that pedestrian plaza has changed the way we think about city. And I mean, Kunal sir rightly mentioned about those two books and say that, it's all about, creating, walkable cities. So probably that's what happened with Chennai. I mean, we created one plaza. It's like a bug, that has bit us now. So we are hungry now to create more such streets and show it to our citizens. So we have decided to scale it up, and we have launched what we call as Chennai Mega Streets Program. The initial idea is to transform 6 neighborhoods, 6 very critical and main neighborhoods. If you see Nungambakam, Roypeta, Mylapore, Adyar, Gindi, Velashiri, these are the part of the core city again, which witnesses a lot of people's movement and all. So now the idea is to develop these 6 neighborhoods on a priority basis, which will cover 110 kilometers of streets. This is phase 1. Of course, the idea is to cover around 600 kilometers subsequently. Yeah. So one or two things that I would like to add here is one, we've almost completed our proposals for the next 6 packages, 6 streets, 6 areas that we want to develop. We are bringing in quick wins wherein we can develop, but to begin with, as a pre-phase 1, we can develop few around some 20-30 kilometers in a big way. And as said in Amritsar's case, we brought in pedestrian plaza, and there were many things that came in along with it. For example, the smart bike. We're also coming up with a MLCP there at pedestrian plaza. I mean, this came out of the demand from the shop owners who have seen the beautiful redesign of the entire street. So this is how Chennai could make it possible. In other words, it was a clear public participation, citizen-driven and citizen-focused initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for actually, as examples showing how citizen engagement is at the heart. At the same time, it's not a few pilots, but actually looking at transforming the entire city and taking actions, systemic changes, like the way Kunal sir mentioned. It's great to see that in play. So next, I'd like to invite both Mr. Pradeep Bansal and Anuj Malhotra to make a presentation about their transformation in Delhi. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pradeep Bansal, Chief Engineer, North Delhi Municipal Corporation, and we have taken up 2 projects for Street for People. One is Karol Bagh. We have successfully implemented that project, and we are also going ahead on that project. And the second, we are taking up Chandni Chowk along with PWD Delhi. So here is small presentation. These are the 2 areas of Karol Bagh and Chandni Chowk where we have taken into consideration the details. Anuj, can you explain in detail?
Sure, sir.
So Anuj Malhotra is our knowledge partner and associated with all these street projects with North MCD.
So this is Karol Bagh. So I'll start with the Ajmal Ka pedestrianization and the Karol Bagh walkability enhancement. So Karol Bagh is a very old market area. If people are familiar with Delhi, I think Karol Bagh is one of the most important, vibrant commercial markets in Delhi, and it's the mixed-use street. But you can see how Ajmal Khan Street was before. It was heavily parked. There was actually very less space for people to walk, and it was very congested, too much of honking, and not a very pleasant experience. The entire Karol Bagh area is like that. So actually this project report was done in 2009 by DIMS and Nila, the urban design firm in Delhi. And they had worked out the figures and brought out as to what needs to be done in this area. And they figured out that Ajmal Khan Road, which is the prime artery of Karol Bagh area, should be pedestrianized because 96% of people which are on that street are already pedestrians, and only 4% were cars. So along with the proposal, they also worked out the traffic circulation pattern for the entire area. This was approved by the governing body of UTPEC and the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi in 2010. and thereafter it was some trials were conducted, but for some reason it didn't went through. But then in 2019 we started not DMC again took it up onto themselves, and we thought that probably we should first do the tactile implementation of this project, so that it has more buy-in from all the people, and we can actually bring in any modifications that there needs to be in the project. So to begin with the modification, the first thing that we needed to do, because this is a very old area, there is not much parking available in this area. The first thing was to actually figure out where the parking can happen, so that the streets can be relieved of the parking. And so all these new spots that you see on the screen were figured out. These are all the empty spaces, and they were given to, some part of them were given to parking, or the entire thing was given to parking, to multi-level parking lots. And after that, an MOU was also signed with the Market Federation. This is actually a very huge change in policy in non-DMC side. Normally it is done by department, but here the Market Federation was asked to actually manage parking and manage that area. So it was quite a difference in the way it was done. And the parking fee again was on the on-street parking fee was increased to 40 from 20 rupees. So these are pretty big changes. And the pedestrianization of the Ajmal Khan Road, which we started with, was actually a vision which was presented in 2009. We started doing the implementation. Remember that we were with the entire team of PWD and not DMC and traffic police. I think a combined team of I think around 50 officials, all of them on the site, working through the night, 2-3 nights in the first, and then we made some major transformation in the first night itself. And next day, when you look at your street, it was actually transformed to something like this. So people actually woke up to something like this, and like a very clean street, and completely transformed, fully pedestrianized, with benches on the street. And I must say that people had not ever believed in their life that this could actually happen on Karol Bagh, on Ajmal Khan, because all their lives they have been seen this kind of street, which is heavily congested. And it turned around into something like this, with minimal intervention, which is only paint, some potted trees, and bollards fixed at positions. So the street, which was like this, was transformed into something like this by a simple tactile method. So we now, it was not something which was done temporarily. Actually, the tactile method is still in place. It is very much in existence. It's been about a year now, more than a year actually, and the street is working perfectly. It was such a joy to look at how people started actually looking at and actually coming to the street, being there, sitting next to the shops, the children, grandfathers bringing the children out. This was quite a sight. Elderly women, it was again something that people could actually put their wheelchair to, and benches, and it is a space for everybody, not irrespective of their income groups. So this was a complete transformation of that area, which was carried out with the help of PWD and not DMC, a very good partnership between two departments, which is also quite a, we don't see that happening in Indian kind of government structures, but this is probably also an example how they came together to actually implement this. And some of the other elements which were also contributed through CSR were the bottle crushers. And there are now 7 golf carts which are on that Ajmal Khan street, which are also running. CSC took some surveys, and there was a marked difference in the PM 2.5 concentration. It had come down drastically, and the people on the street had actually doubled as per their surveys. Not just that, it is not just about pedestrianizing the street. It is also looking at all the other components of it, because if they are not met, then you can't really sustain pedestrianization. So the other thing was that how people come to the station of metro station, because there's a metro station there, and how they come and pick up and drop off to that area. You can see it is always crowded around Karol Bagh metro station. Whoever has been to Karol Bagh knows that they don't want to pass through this area because it is highly congested. And very simply, it was actually converted into a beautiful pedestrian crossing with a traffic light where you see the stop sign. Now it's an old photograph. Now there's a traffic light, pedestrian traffic light, which the traffic police has installed. So traffic police has been like a complete partner in this entire affair. 3 departments have worked miraculously, amazingly well. This again is a very congested area outside the street. Again, in a very simple way, it has been given to pedestrians, as well as it has also created a very simply an empty lane, so that the electric vehicles can also ply in a very disciplined manner. Along with that, it is not just about pedestrians. The pedestrians are actually not safe if the parking is not organized. So again, a whole lot of parking area. So I must say here, before I explain this, that Ajmal Khan Street, actually the moment we started doing the pedestrianization of Ajmal Khan Street or giving it to pedestrians, we immediately kind of realized that it is not possible to only do Ajmal Khan Street. We will have to do the entire area, which is all the streets which are connected to Ajmal Khan Street. Because the impact of this street will always be on the other streets. So all the other streets also had to be organized. So this is not Ajmal Khan Road, but this is a perpendicular street to Ajmal Khan Road where the parking is being organized, and therefore all the parking interventions happened on all the perpendicular streets to Ajmal Khan. Slowly we actually covered the entire Karol Bagh area for doing our intervention. And now with the Supreme Court asking us to look at a parking management area plan, now Karol Bagh has also prepared a parking management area plan for having daytime and nighttime parking. We also looked at the vendors there, and we did some conceptual diagrams and then actually implemented it. There is a town vending committee which is also being in confidence. Now we have identified around 300 spaces all around Karol Bagh where vendors will be allocated. So that work is also going on in parallel. This is Pradeep Bansalji taking the award in the UMI conference last year. Now, we don't stop there. The point is that this is tactile was to see whether this can be done. And now we are with the stakeholders, everybody is convinced that this can be done. The walkability enhancements for the entire Karol Bagh area has been taken up by PWD. They are implementing it along with the IT-based parking management system, which is also coming in place by North DMC. So this is the plan for the streets. There are about 18 kilometers of it. And I will just show you that this, this is Ajmal Khan, and now it will be a pedestrianized street. We had a beautiful, this art festival by the students. About 800 students came to paint this, and we are kind of looking at the same pattern which they created to make it permanent and being part of the street design. So that will come, and you can see the sections which were done. Now, this is the construction photograph. This is how it was, the Padam Singh Road. And you can see now a 4-meter wide footpath being done. It is currently all these pictures are under construction pictures. So they're not very beautiful as of now. They're not looking great, but you can see how slowly transformation is happening for this area. Of course, there is a lot of resistance from people because suddenly your parking space has gone. But, everybody, all the officials, everybody is convinced that in the long run, this is the way to go. And when the IT-based parking management system also is implemented, then all these issues will be taken care of.
Anuj, just to step in there, it will be great if you can wrap up in the next minute. Thank you so much.
The next project we are taking up is Chandni Chowk. PWD has already started a road for pedestrians. So we are just connecting all our roads with the Chandni Chowk road. So Anuj, can you explain on Chandni Chowk?
Ji, So, sir, isme bhi now Chandni Chowk, as you know, is a very large area, and here the first project which was taken up is the pedestrianization of the Chandni Chowk road. This is done by the late Pradeep Sachdeva sir, who is a great urban designer based out of Delhi. He's no more now, but his legacy has been now left. Now we have the Chandni Chowk road, which has been transformed into a beautiful pedestrian plaza. And this is the transformation we all are aware of. But now, what in North DMC, what we are doing is we are actually trying to integrate the Chandni Chowk road, the transformation of Chandni Chowk road to the entire Chandni Chowk area, which means that the traffic circulation, the pedestrian circulation, the goods traffic circulation, all of them will be taken care of for the entire Chandni Chowk area. So I'll just run through this, run through the slides. These are all the, this is a very important ped shed analysis that we also did, that where the metro stations are and how the metro stations are actually, are they walkable from the nearby area or not? And most of in these cases, they are not actually. So network enhancement has been taken up as a very important measure for Chandni Chowk area, and that is important by fire escape, fire resistance also. So this is just running through the entire, you can see that the non-motorized two-wheelers mobility, this is the three-wheeler mobility, you can see the before and the after, the before of four-wheeler and the truck. And this is a composite map. All the blue roads that you see are entirely pedestrianized streets. They are full NMT streets, while all the other streets which you see of different colors are where the pedestrian movement has been widened for and make it more walkable for the entire pedestrian area. So you can see that in the key walkability map for Chandni Chowk, now we have a walkability map we have just prepared. It's the only NMT streets will be around 10 kilometers, while the other streets will be around 21 kilometers, in which walkability enhancement will take place. So these are this is the composite map. The red streets belong to MCD, the green ones to PWD, and street designs have been prepared for all of these streets, and now the implementation of all of them is underway. So nearly around 30 kilometers of streets you will see getting transformed bit by bit in Chandni Chowk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anuj and Mr. Bansal, sir, because I think the transformation that you all have shown is truly inspirational, especially because it is very much in line with the Streets for People challenge, where we are really encouraging cities to first try out quick and innovative measures, but then keep them for long. Just like the way you've shown in Karol Bagh as well, and then slowly look at how it can be transformed into permanent interventions. Some of the very important pieces where you spoke about different departments coming together, such as traffic police, as well as introducing organized parking, especially with priced parking, all of them were very key insights, and also about engaging with students for designing this area. And all of these are bang on for the Streets for People challenge. So thank you so much for sharing that. And next, I'd like to invite Mr. Kamar Ul Zaman Chowdhury, IAS Commissioner, Udaipur Municipal Corporation, to share the work that they've done in the city of Udaipur. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Kunal sir. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I'll just share my screen. So this was a pilot we did in the old city area, and this is a very, you can say, congested area. And it was something which we tried as a pilot. So the first thing, pre-implementation, major challenges were one, the parking was very haphazard. There were street lights and poles and everything, if you see in the first photo. Second photo, we have just what we did during implementation, and the last is what we achieved. So this is one thing which we implemented on the wall of the temple. It was just a very shabby wall, and we colored it, and then we put these springs on that so that children can play. So this is how we did. First we did the site selection, then we did the activity mapping, and then what all is surrounding the site. And then we did the stakeholder consultation with the with commissioner, with deputy mayor, mayor, and everyone from the city, and with colleges and students and Anganwadis, and with the vendors who can give us the material. This is a general plan of this area in Ayunka Talai. If I explain about the area, this area is besides the Pichola Lake, which is one of the famous lakes of Udaipur, and this is just a neighborhood inside inside the old city. So whenever you move through this area, it is very difficult to move. So now if you go to that area, that is properly planned, and this is how we selected this site. You can see as I just showed in the first slide, there is electric poles in between this thing, and how we came up with this street in Smart City project. We have another project, integrated infrastructure project. We got this, we made this street pakka, and now it came up as a concrete street. But what we missed was like removing these poles and arranging the parking, and how we can actually beautify the street. And how we came up with a concept of Ghar, Angan, and Sansar. How we can integrate all these things. Ghar hai Hindi mein, like there is a house, and फिर उसका आंगन है, मतलब उस घर के आगे जो आंगन है उसको हम पूरा संसार कैसे बना सकते हैं. So with this theme we moved, and उसी theme के साथ whatever street we had, like जो concrete street we had, we tried to beautify it, and we tried to transform. So this was actually a photo if I show you. And residential buildings are there, and a lot of debris was there. You can see parking. So these are the challenges which we actually identify. So this was the plan. If you can see to the extreme right, it is a green jungle type theme. Then you see the green one is the river flowing. And to extreme organized, where organized parking is written, we have like hills and mountains. Then if I move down, it is along the river, there is a play area, and it's a pool area. So it's just a theme which we took. So at the top, it is imitation of jungle. Then this is learning track and playful tracks. Then if you see towards the right, what we did, there was a temple, and the temple was like, the walls were really shabby. So we actually painted it, and we fixed some fixtures for the kids so that they can play with it. Then there are some lawn games, then interactive games like for kids, and these are the local games which we put in there, like Langdi Tag or Bagi cheezein jo hum North India mein khelte hain. And this is how we spinning wheels we just put on the wall of the temple. So and to one side we actually organize the parking so that the parking is also included in the plan. So this is the stakeholder consultation with the commissioner, with the deputy mayor, mayor, with the chief engineer, and with the stakeholders of the area. So you can just see the pictures, and it was done during the day, during the night, to see the challenges like what we face in the locality and what is the need of the locality. So this is with the students and the volunteers which we were trying to create for implementation, which we were trying to include. So this is the actual implementation which started. This was in the form what we got from like before the implementation, and this is site cleaning and everything which we did during this. So these are the four major things: transforming the Chowk into a vibrant, safe, yet interactive and engaging space. Second was community level interactive space, like old age people and ladies can come to the the street, and they can sit and they can enjoy, and they can actually talk with each other and interact with each other. And the third is learning come playing. Like students can actually learn from their games. And the fourth one is organizing the limited space for multiple use. So this is the during implementation thing which we did. We did most of the things with the volunteers, and you can see to the left it was done on-site orientation of the students and then on-site implementation. So this is how we did it. If you see like top center photo, we are painting the temple there, which was not in a good shape. So this is day 1 of the implementation, day 2 of the implementation, and day 3 of the implementation. And if I see bottom right, that is the final picture which we got after 3 days. So this is something which we did with ICLE and BBLF Foundation. This is on-site photos of the team. This is what we achieved finally. So I'll just go. Learning track is there. Organized parking is there. Spinning wheels are there. Lawn games are there. Interactive games are there. Imitation of jungle is there. And painting on temple wall for kids is there. And visually compelling streetscape and corners is there. So I'll just skip. This is the media coverage. This is the post-implementation, how kids are enjoying it. And this was mainly the impact assessment of the street. So these are the public discussions which we held after the implementation for impact assessment. This is, you can see how the street came up and how people are enjoying it. So these are the results which we try to find out for the 4 interventions. And first thing, for transforming it into a vibrant space, 92% people were satisfied. 77% were people. 77% people were satisfied for. They were satisfied that it is a community level interactive space. 85% for learning come playing, and 64% for multiple use. This is the stakeholder interaction. This is the interaction with different officials and public figures. So this is the sensory mapping survey. This is on-site photo documentation. This is what we can see before and after. Just rush through the photos. This is the temple, and this is what we achieved. This was first pilot which we did. Now we are planning like further, and with this Street for Challenge competition, we are trying to actually increase it to other roads and major roads of the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was really nice to see your intervention in Udaipur, especially because you've really focused on some of our youngest citizens who most often get left off when we think about planning for our cities, and you put them right in the heart of your transformation. It was fantastic to see this. Now, while we've seen this great work by all the 4 panelists, we must know that while they might not have spoken about the court cases and the pushbacks they probably got from the stakeholders, invariably there are these pushbacks that we will have to sort of proactively take a very active stand and engage and have negotiations with all our stakeholders. So today we don't have time for question answer session, and we would be very quickly moving to the presentation of today. And for that, I'd like to introduce Shreya Gadepalli, the South Asia Program Lead of ITDP. Over the last 2 decades, Shreya has worked on various public transport systems in over half a dozen cities in India. And her areas of expertise include design of non-motorized transport infrastructure, multimodal integration, parking management, and people and transit-oriented urban planning. Shreya, over to you.
Thanks, Aswathy. It's great to see the fantastic work that cities have done across India. Let me start with my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, sure. We can see the screen. Yeah.
Great. I'll switch off my video, or Venu, can you switch off my video for a moment?
Yes, I can do that for you, Shreya.
Okay.
Shreya, can I barge in for a second?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I was thinking, we use all kinds of words for our challenges. You name this streets for people, but there's a brilliant colloquial word which already exists called street smart. So, I mean, we could just think of renaming it street smart with a tagline of building streets for people. Just a thought. You go ahead. I mean, we can think of it later.
Yeah. We could even take a poll of the cities to find out if that really connects with them. Shall we start? Thank you. So, like you saw with the cities, they gave a fantastic overview of what Streets for People really stands for. And let's look at what this particular challenge itself is about, right? So you're talking about reimagining streets for people. And what does this mean? The goal is to make them safe, healthy, and happy, and where everybody could actually enjoy being out on the streets. They are healthy places to be, they are happy places to be, and they're also great for the economy in many places that, as you've seen, that streets for people are successful streets. Now, there are a few principles that you must get right when you're talking about streets for people. And what are they? The very first one is fair distribution of space. So are you ensuring that people who walk or people who cycle and people who take public transportation, who are the majority of users of the street, but oftentimes do not get their due? So are we making sure that they are getting a fair share of space for people walking, cycling, and public transportation and using public transport? The focus, of course, of Streets of People is primarily walking, and we have Cycles for Change, which is a sister challenge, which looks at also cycling. And soon we would also hopefully have something on the public transportation front also from MoHUA. The second one is, are you ensuring both safety, which is road safety, as well as security? So are we making sure that, India has one of the worst track records as far as road safety is concerned. And in terms of personal security, it's no better. And we keep hearing about women being molested, raped, and this is not the right way that we could go forward. And therefore, are we making sure that our streets are safe and secure? Third, are they comfortable places to be? So it's not just enough to have a wide footpath. Are we also making sure that they are covered with tree shade, that there are spaces to sit where people can stop, rest, or speak with each other? So it's not just about walking from A to B, but also about spending time in that area, right? Fourth, are we being sensitive to the local context? Are we engaging with local people, seeing what kind of activities are already happening in that area and bring them into the design rather than trying to place something which is alien in that context? Fifth, are we making it livable, right? Variety of elements like, are we bringing in play elements? Are we ensuring that this is inclusive? Do we have active edges? Do we have street vending also as integrated with the whole idea? And you saw many of these being included in our 4 example cities that we saw earlier. And last but not the least, are we ensuring that through the process, we are also ensuring environmental sustainability? Are we creating a better microclimate? Are we using sustainable materials for this, etc.? Now, while this challenge is about creating these ideas through tactical urbanism, which are quick interventions, the eventual goal is that after you've established whatever the designs are you also taking it to the next level and making it permanent using all these other components as well, right? Those are the 6 principles that you should keep in mind. And when you do that, you actually get streets that are safe, healthy, and happy for all. So what is this challenge approach? So the goal here is not assuming that you know everything, but instead test, then learn from the tests. And then once you have those insights, use them to scale in a much larger area, potentially across your entire city. So the idea of test, learn, scale, which is also something that our cities in the Cycles for Change challenge have embraced. And it's great to see this process where rather than assuming that we know everything, we are instead working with citizens, trying out various ideas, learning from them, and eventually making sure that this becomes the new norm and scale it. So the challenge has two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. In stage 1, cities would not only test pilots and I'll get to what we mean by a pilot in a moment, but along with it, they would also create a plan for scale up. And there would be cities which would be shortlisted at the end of stage 1, which would go into stage 2, which would essentially graduate into stage 2, and they'll get intensive support to actually do the scale up. Now, if you do not, for whatever reason, make it into stage 2 in the first round, do not worry. We would have multiple rounds of the Streets for People challenge, or maybe we'd start calling it Street Smart, as Mr. Kunal Kumar said earlier, challenge, so that other cities also get a chance in the future with a better plan, with more testing to go into the next round. So the goal here, as far as stage 1 is concerned, is that it's not about creating anything permanent, but instead quickly test innovative and low-cost interventions. These are about creating doing placemaking using physical elements, but also looking at programming of activities. So do not think that it's only about design. It's also about the kind of activities and the kind of engagement that you have in that space, which is a critical measure for success of the initiative itself. So let's look at the overall challenge roadmap. We have 4 key stages, 4 key steps in stage 1, right, between now and February of 2021. The first one is identify your pilot locations where you would actually test the interventions. 2, roll out a design competition where local designers, they could be students and other practitioners in the city, who could support you with developing these designs at the chosen pilot locations. Engage with local citizens to ensure that these designs themselves are contextual and the citizens are supportive of it. 3rd, test the pilot interventions. And finally, using the learnings from it, create a scale-up strategy and scale up for longer-term impact. So that's the stage 1 plan. And today we are going to focus primarily on the very first step, which is identifying a pilot location, or not one, but identifying actually 2 pilot locations. And what do we mean by these 2 pilot locations? Let's look at them. So what qualifies as a pilot? A pilot would include 2 components. One is a flagship public space project, which is typically an area which has very high footfall. It could be a big market area in the city or a large transit hub and such, where you would look at substantial pedestrianization. And you saw some examples of that kind today from Delhi, from Amritsar, etc. These are key market areas or a heritage precinct, or potentially even a transit hub, where you would substantially pedestrianize that entire area. The second one is about also creating livable neighborhoods. Now, not every part of the city has high footfalls. They're not market areas, but they are residential neighborhoods. They might be mixed use, but primarily residential neighborhoods. So what can you do about making these neighborhoods also streets for people, where you have elements of livability and safety, all the principles that we spoke about? How do we make that happen? So a flagship typology could be, like I said, a market or a real estate or a retail area, or which could also be a heritage area. And typically heritage areas also tend to have markets in that precinct. Second typology is a transit hub. And third, maybe you have a different typology which we have not thought about, and you have suggestions for them, please send them our way, so that we could make sure that such a typology is also included in the possibilities of typologies. And in terms of neighborhood typologies, we have 3 in mind. First, look at mixed income neighborhoods in the city. Second, the possibility of how you could revitalize resettlement colonies. Unfortunately, in our cities, oftentimes we end up creating these resettlement colonies, which essentially becomes a slum relocation program. So instead of that slum being in the city center, you've shifted it and made it into another slum in the outskirts of the city. Can we now start revitalizing these areas, make them integrated with the city, make them really lively places to be, rather than these dangerous and areas which are falling apart? So second is resettlement colonies. Think about what you could do with them. Third, there could be unplanned, potentially low-income neighborhoods within the city itself. The first one, mixed neighborhood incomes, maybe they are the planned kind of neighborhoods, while the third one is an unplanned neighborhood, where oftentimes we do not have enough public spaces which are part of the original plan itself. So how could you create more public spaces? How could you create a nicer environment in these areas? That's the third. And fourth, if you have an idea, please send it our way, right? Now, you should look at all these potential opportunities. And what does a flagship pilot location have? And essentially, like I said, an area with very high footfalls, a lot of people coming to that area. It's something that's a destination for a diverse range of users within the city who come to that area, and an intervention that could create a city level impact, where everybody sees it and says, yes, this is transformative and I'd like the entire city to become like that, right? That's what a flagship project is. And like I said earlier, there could be market and retail areas, including heritage areas or transit hubs or another kind that you might choose and find out. Now, let me go into some examples of what other places have done. And we've seen today some Indian examples, but let's also look at some other examples which are of a network of sorts. So this picture that you see here, the before and after, is of Copenhagen, which was initially full of all these vehicles. But eventually, step by step, the city started expanding and creating a network of streets for people. What you see on the right side. And it's not just a single street. It's actually a whole network in the city core. Step by step that they've expanded this whole thing. Very much like how Delhi did in the Karol Bagh area and is now looking at in Chandni Chowk and other places. So don't be limited to doing a small little stretch somewhere. Imagine something bigger. Imagine something where you can have substantial impact in that area, right? In this particular case, the main street itself is about a little over 1 kilometer, but they also, through the process, created about 10 hectares of new public space, car-free public space in Copenhagen, right in the city center. And with the goal of improving connectivity, activating streets, supporting the local businesses to bloom and nurture a walking culture in the city. And subsequently now, and over the last few decades, Copenhagen has been creating pedestrian-friendly environments across the whole city. And like you can see on the left is this main arterial which was cutting through the old city, which is now not only completely pedestrianized, but they have a whole series of other smaller lanes, by lanes, which are also completely pedestrianized or walking and cycling only in these areas. The second kind of flagship project that I mentioned is essentially transit hubs. And transit hubs are where a lot of people are walking, right? They might be coming to the transit hub to pick up a connect to a public transportation mode. Oftentimes, they are also intermodal facilities, right? Where you might get off a bus, get into a metro, or get off from one bus to the other bus, or change from a bus to maybe a smaller vehicle like an IPT, a micro-mobility mode. So what could you do in that area to facilitate this multimodality, but also create public space? This example is from Chhatarpur Metro Station in South Delhi. Delhi has been doing some great work in the whole public space arena. And what they've essentially looked at is an entire catchment area of about 7 kilometers. What they have done so far is essentially the station area, about 300 meters in length, but they have plans to now expand it to the whole catchment area and see how they could create a truly walking friendly environment to access public transportation. That's the other flagship. Let me quickly go to, what and how would you identify what your 5 flagship locations might be. So maybe, you're already working on some cycles for change corridors. Now start looking at what neighborhoods also you could choose. You might have a couple of options and look at a place where it might be relatively easy to implement, but also has high impact, strong citizen support. And when I say citizen support, in a flagship especially, it's essentially market associations locally and others who would be there to assist you, support you in implementing it, and the potential to cater to a wide demographic. The second typology that I spoke about was neighborhood locations, where they are localized in nature. Streets are relatively narrow. They're a mix of age groups, and this is the kind which Udaipur showed today, right? As against Delhi, which might be considered maybe, or Amritsar or Chennai, which was more the flagship variety, right? In this case, you're looking at a neighborhood. Make sure that you're looking at schools, local shops, bus stop access, local parks, and how you would integrate them with the street network and make it safe for people, safe for pedestrians. Like I said earlier, look at mixed income neighborhoods as one typology, resettlement colonies, unplanned income neighborhoods. Try to identify at least one of each of these various typologies. And while you would pick up only one of them, do keep in mind that eventually you should look at all these typologies in the future to transform. So again, a few examples, what cities have done. This is the case of Belo Horizonte in Brazil, where they took a dead area of a neighborhood, started transforming that area. And it has a school area in the locality. They made sure that they were doing this with the local citizens to make sure that they are part of the development of the design itself. And the area is not only safe during the daytime, but also at nighttime, and the kind of activities that they have been organizing to make sure that it's a nice place to be, right? That's the first example. The second example I'd like to show is, in one of these resettlement colonies in Chennai, in the south of Chennai, an area called Kannagi Nagar, where the area was a dead space. It was quite dangerous. And through the use of art, that whole area is being revitalized by creating art and combining it with public space. So it's an area of about 1.5 square kilometers, and they're looking at how to use art as a tool to create a vibrant and accessible public space. Again, they have all these various ideas. The community was engaged in the process of developing these ideas. There were these were put up as an exhibition, and then using the learnings from that, they took it to create something more permanent, where the whole area becomes a nice area to live in. The third example, and this one is from Indonesia, is looking at a very low income neighborhood within the city, but a very low income neighborhood, essentially a slum, and how they have managed to transform that area, again, with simple things like color and small little elements, getting the local area, local citizens engaged in the process, creating a sense of ownership, but also now this whole area has become a destination of sorts. Even though it was meant for the locality, other people are starting to come, and it is revitalizing the whole neighborhood for them. So how do you go about identifying these typologies? Start looking at what options you have. You might have a few mixed income neighborhoods in the city, some resettlement colonies in the periphery of the city, some unplanned low income neighborhoods within the city, or another kind of typology that you could come up with, maybe we could not think of, but tell us what it might be. Look at, especially focus on the lack of public spaces right now, neighborhoods which have schools, so that how can you make the school precincts safer, neighborhoods where also you have supportive citizen groups, and start doing a pilot there. And with one neighborhood, do the design test and take it forward. Let me quickly go to summarize the pilot selection. You have to essentially identify multiple typologies, but start by choosing one each, right? It could be a transit hub and an unplanned low income neighborhood, or it could be a mixed income neighborhood with another typology for flagship that we've not thought about. Or it could be a market and retail area, maybe in the heritage area, along with some other typology for neighborhood. So you need to do at least one each of a flagship and a neighborhood typology to be able to eligible to go to stage 2, right? For your work. What would the next workshop be? So remember, from between now and the next workshop that we would have in a few weeks, about 3 weeks from now, you would identify the pilots. In the next round, we will tell you and guide you about how you could roll out a design competition to engage local designers, students, others, to bring you some great design ideas. So run a design competition as a means to get design ideas to implement on the ground for the pilot implementation. So that's where we are. Between now and the next workshop, you would identify the pilot locations and start engaging with citizen groups so that this becomes a collective process rather than you doing it yourself independently. So that brings me to the end of this section of the presentation of this session. Over to you, Aswathy.
Thank you so much, Shreya. And we're going to just take a moment to take some questions at this point. So first, we have a few questions about the challenge itself. So we have a question from Kolkata, which asks, how far is this plan to be implemented and at what scale?
Sure. So the idea is that these are quick interventions. We are not expecting them to be permanent interventions at this point, but with the objective of making them permanent after you've tested these. And as far as scale is concerned, they are of the similar scale as what you saw of the cities today earlier, right? We're looking at something in the range of 1 to 2 square kilometers of areas being picked up for, and you could potentially pick up something larger, but approximately that size with substantial in the flagship, you're looking at a substantial amount of public space creation, primarily pedestrian priority. We're not saying that it needs to be entirely pedestrianized. Look at also the interface between traffic and pedestrian movement, but it needs to be predominantly pedestrian because these are high footfall areas. And on the other side, it's about also creating neighborhoods which are great for walking and also cycling. Make sure that whatever you do is also integrated with the Cycles for Change challenge work that you're doing as much as possible. And that's the goal.
Thank you, Shreya. I think that also answers another question, which was about, how much should we focus on encouraging pedestrianization in small cities and towns? I think that you've covered as well. So I'm going to go to the next question, which was from Mr. Akash Gonge, who was asking about, when we implement these street design projects, how do we ensure that they're managed even for a year or two without getting damaged? And how do we avoid encroachments taking place on large pavements, which are in fact meant for pedestrians?
Sure. So it's a very key question here. And the goal of Streets for People and any such interventions is not just about constructing something or designing something. It's not just a physical intervention. It's an intervention which requires active engagement by the city along with their citizens to make it a success. And like you saw in each of the examples that we saw earlier, and especially with Delhi, there was an active participation of local market areas, citizen groups, etc., to also become part of the management of the area, and also look at how you can program these activities in that area, right? So it requires active engagement. It's not a one-time intervention. It's a lifelong commitment to a new way of looking at the city.
Sure, Shreya. So there's another question from Ms. Shivangi, who asked, can the flagship project and the neighborhood project pilot sites be implemented for two contiguous sites, say a major market street falling within a mixed income neighborhood?
Sure. As in, if you can create something that has the ability of being this confluence of everything, by all means, take it up. And maybe you can take up one more typology if you're so ambitious. At the end of the day, it's a challenge. Remember, those cities which do better than others are the ones which are going to win the challenge. So do not think that you can get away with the smallest thing possible. Instead, show your ambition, make it happen.
So dream big, she says to all of you all. So yeah, the next question. This is from Dhanya Shreya. How can we effectively create a neighborhood association to be involved in the process? And how much impetus is to be given on garbage and trash management on streets during the pilot phase?
A very important question, because garbage can be quite a big issue. And oftentimes it's also not easy to have an engagement with citizen voices, because they might be not also singular citizen voices, right? They come in various shapes and sizes. A resident group might be very supportive, but maybe the market association is not supportive. Or one side of the resident group is supportive, the other side is not. And this is it's a question of how you can bring people together to attempt to do something. Now, the beauty of the tactical urbanism approach is that you're not creating anything permanent. You're saying, let's try it out. Let's see whether this works or not. And there's far less hesitation, as what we've seen in many places, to test out an idea rather than trying to create something permanent without their engagement in the process. So make sure that you're taking these ideas to them, let them give their own ideas, give them options to choose from, and tell them and ensure, and they should know for sure that this is really a test. We'll find out what the impact is, and based on that, we will revise the design and change things, right?
Sure, Shin. Now we have another question from the Commissioner, Vijayawada Municipal Corporation. Commissioner asks, can you please clarify about any site-specific dimensions that one needs to consider in pilot selection? For example, length of a market street.
So it's not one size fits all, but look at the kind of impact that you can create. Like some of the examples that we saw today, there was a wide range, of course, but if you're looking at something that's pedestrianized completely, maybe you're looking at something in the range of about 1 kilometer. But if you're looking at a network, and we would strongly and urge all cities to think about a whole network in an area, and not all of it is completely pedestrianized. You would have some level of access for motor vehicles, but try to make sure that that motor vehicle access is fairly limited. There might be for deliveries, maybe some residents to come reach that area, etc. But there is no, you're also ensuring that this area is predominantly walking and cycling friendly, right? And, an area somewhere in the range of about a few square kilometers with at least one prominent pedestrianization in the flagship project.
Sure. So we have a question from Mr. Dhanesh from Kolkata, who says that for a city like Kolkata, where the northern city is so cramped with just alleyways, what can be done in such a place where, the streets are mixed with homes and offices, all in the same place?
Sure. And, while, you might think that this is a very unique typology, the truth is that typology exists in pretty much every Indian city. And that typology oftentimes exists in any old city anywhere in the world. So if you looked at Copenhagen, that was precisely the kind of typology that you would see. And the question is, how can you start? It's your imagination. Think about how you could transform that area, and who would you need to support you to transform that area, right? And this kind of a older precinct is ripe for pedestrianization. And do remember that cars have been in existence in human life only for the last century, and especially in Indian cities only for the last 20 years. Before that, cars were very, very minimal in Indian cities. And even now, in a city like Kolkata, only 5% of trips are by cars. 95% of trips have nothing to do with cars. So can you start reimagining car-free areas? That's the challenge. That's the invitation for you to go above and beyond to create streets for people.
We also have an interesting question from Ms. Antara. She asked that Naya Raipur, Atal Nagar, is a new city and is sparsely populated. There's very low footfall in the city and almost no crowded places. But there are several villages in the city, some tourism spots as well. So can these villages and tourism spots be taken up as well?
So think about doing something where people would actually benefit, and not in a greenfield site where there is nobody, right? So that's what my suggestion would be. And maybe you would be better off trying to pick up something in the core city of Raipur, which is full of people and a lot of activity, rather than picking up a complete greenfield site where there may not be people. But if you do have certain villages which are ripe, and where you could do some interventions, by all means pick it up. And I'd also like to invite Mr. Kunal Kumar if he has some thoughts about what cities could do and guide them on this.
Yeah, so what you've been very well elucidating is about what can be done, and different kinds of programs can be taken up, different kinds of interventions. Creativity is going to be the order of the day. And you can imagine so many different things you can do, and your context is well known to you. So the best person to understand is the best person to fight the war is the Jawan at the bottom. So you are the guy who knows what needs to be done and what will work in your city and what people will be looking forward to. So those what's will vary, and some examples have really come up in this presentation. Shreya has given some examples. We've seen such beautiful examples from some cities who have made their presentations. And while some have not made, we understand a lot of good work has happened, and we'll try to keep documenting that and sending to you. My thing is not about the what. I think it's about the how. And I think Most times what we get into is what I call a trap is, there's some consultant or someone who's giving us all the knowledge. And we feel that this is what has to be taken and has to be transplanted in that place. Let's not, as a city, get into that mold. And it's not about a consultant being wrong. Please don't misunderstand me. It's about your observation and your team's observation driving things rather than something which has been textbook written and you're trying to just copy paste it. That's one important thing. Second is this thing about how much do you engage and what is the role of a pilot. And I'll speak from personal experience. I think a level of engagement when you begin a project is very important. But what is that level of engagement? You have to be very intuitive about. You will see that in a process of engagement, there would be a time when attrition starts to happen, when people start to listen, the amount of discussion starts to stop. People think it's almost like a dead end, which means that now there's need for something tangible to be shown. And on top of that, you will have the next level of engagement. So a level of engagement followed by a level of tangible work, followed by a greater level of engagement, followed by a greater level of tangible work is how you can think of it. There is no mathematical formula to it, but there could be multiple ways in which it can pan out in different cities. But engagement along with tangible work, even if it's a small half kilometer or just a pilot overnight. We had a long debate on one of the pedestrianization works that we're doing in Pune. It went on for 3.5, 4 months, and I used to have meetings. And there's another thing about this group think which happens in engagements. So when you meeting, say 200 people from a locality, you would see that 7 or 8 people tend to speak more, and everyone else, who's gathered there is either influenced by that or doesn't speak and is basically a silent observer. You will see those 7, 8 people capturing the agenda. And it's very important that you have levels of engagement where everyone gets a voice, not necessarily in that same room, but you have different modes of communicating with different people so that everyone gets heard. And then you get a holistic picture of what the neighborhood is talking about. And then once it comes to a situation that you've known things, do something. It depends again on the context. What we did was overnight, we just broke through some of the walls and we laid literally a overnight footpath and put some planters and everything, which essentially gave when the people came out the next day, it gave them something to talk about. And then the level of engagement went one step ahead. Then you have to keep specific metrics for yourself. So do not have very simplistic metrics of how many kilometers of footpaths you build, what is the width of the footpath. Please have relevant metrics. How many people were walking before this? How many people are walking now? Have the sales of shops gone up? Have the sales dropped? Are the number of elderly women and children on our footpaths or our roads increased? Has the number of conflict points on our roads gone down? So have those metrics which really matter. Don't have these numerical metrics of what kilometers and what width and all this. It's fine once in a while to have a lesser width, but more people walking. That makes more sense than having a 4 feet footpath with nobody walking on it. Then also be very tactical with critical issues which we think consultants don't never bring it to. Street vendors. Then it's about electricity poles. It's about different departments having different infrastructure. Electricity department has typically those NSCB boxes, those electricity board boxes and all on the roads. How do you move them and all? All that has to be, a lot of engagement with people will be required. So think through these things in a very practical way, because they're not going to go away. If you build a beautiful parking of, bay parking or some kind, and tomorrow there's hawking going on, then the road that you want to, be free for right of way will actually get encroached by parking. So be tactical in the context. Do not depend only on the voice of consultants. Be a good observer. Do this, this thing that Shreya keeps talking about, test, scale, learn, which is like engage, implement, engage, implement, engage, implement, and do this multiple cycles. And never stop with a point solution or engineering solution. We are not here doing engineering roads or footpaths. This is not an engineering challenge. This is a people challenge. The streets for people, the people is in 100x bigger bold than the street itself. So that's very important for us to understand. You have to focus on usability, on sustainability, on seeing the complete transformation of an urban space as a space rather than looking at it as only an engineering project. So it will need a lot of sensitization. It needs a lot of sensitization. Engineers are not trained to think like this. I was reading again from the book Street Fight. There's a chapter. So there she talks about firefighters, and because firefighters they have big firefighting vans. They need very broad roads, and they actually in many parts of New York their roads are wide not because of anything else, because hardly anyone lives there, but because the firefighters in that area had a big say in urban planning, and they made the roads very wide because the firefighters could take their vans through it. And that has become a headache for pedestrians because they can't cross the roads because the cars just whiz through, just because one fine day there will be a fire in 3 years or 4 years, and then for all the every day a pedestrian has to go through that because one guy had the privilege of planning for that entire city. So understanding the context is very important. Not going by the copybook style is very important. Being tactical about it. Think think with a lot of people. Have some devil's advocates in the team also who will tell you the right things. These are the things I want to talk about. What's are very very creative. Our cities are very creative. We've seen some excellent presentations. Amritsar, Delhi, Chennai, which was the fourth one? Udaipur. All of them are excellent work, and there are many others. So there's no dearth of what's. But please understand, there's a nightmarish how behind it. There's a lot of struggle we have gone through behind it, and that's something we have to ready to go through in our own context, in our own ways. And that's what the leadership is required for this kind of challenge. So maybe I'll stop here. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir.
I would like to say, thanks a lot for saying that we've seen a lot of initiative from the cities themselves also. Like the fact that Delhi managed to do what it did was because they were active, like there were officials from the city which managed to do what they did. And they had very good advisors, both from within the government and outside, who could turn this around. So, I think it's a question of, are you leveraging those people who are there within your team and outside to create something that is truly people oriented? So, very, very much on point about the people being more important than the quantum of streets. Think about the impact and make sure that your own teams, and I'm very sure that in every city, there are these champions within who can create a big difference. And we've seen that with Cycles for Change, some fantastic officials from the cities, even the engineering team. Sometimes we tend to think about this in terms of engineers versus others, but I'd say sometimes even engineers can be very people oriented, and therefore maybe it's a question of how everybody can come together to create streets for people. So I'd encourage commissioners, but also city officials like planners and engineers and all their advisors to come together to create something great.
Thank you, Shreya, and thank you, Kunal. So I think both of you all, really focused on understanding the context, working with devil's advocates, focusing on the usability of our streets, ensuring that we evaluate them well, and then you also shared some really good tactics for building momentum. And with that, we'll move on to the next part of our presentation very quickly about building momentum. Let me just share my screen. So as Sir mentioned about the fact that, when we do what we're doing, it's how we do it that matters. And in the heart of this particular challenge is embracing a citizen-led approach and building momentum for this project and the challenge. So how can we do this? And for this, it's very, very important for us to constantly communicate with our citizens. One, to inform our citizens about the fact that the city is taking part in this challenge. Two, to engage with the citizens while we are coming out, while we're selecting the pilot, coming up with our designs and implementing them. and also to persuade the citizens as we look at transforming our streets into streets for people. So we've had some fantastic learning from India Cycles for Change challenges, as Shreya just now mentioned. So cities have taken up various innovative measures to engage with their citizens. They've used various measures such as cyclothons. They put up these large posters across the city to inform their citizens. They organize various painting competitions, etc., for young children as well. They had online as well as offline meetings with their diverse groups, and look at various events for building support for this project. So citizen engagement is key to the success of this project. So how can you engage with our citizen groups? Number one, we can look at non-profit organizations, CSOs who can help your city team coordinate with other organizations for rolling out this particular challenge. They can help in ensuring participatory planning through community engagement. The urban designers and urban planners in your city can play a very important role in being a part of your team towards this particular end. We could look at how academic institutions can really mobilize volunteers for surveys and on-ground implementation work. Many students and young professionals would be very happy to be a volunteer for surveys and on-ground implementation work. They could even help in promoting the work that you're doing through social media and otherwise, as well as documenting the work that has been done through photos, videos, and blogs. And as Sir mentioned, and Shreya also highlighted about how to monitor and evaluate the impact of interventions. There could be large groups, corporate groups that are interested in being a sponsor or who can come up with innovative ways in funding this particular work. And various resident welfare associations and other groups could ensure representation of the local community, the women, the children, the elderly, in all stages of our challenge. So we are asking, we'd like to request you to do a few actions. One is to spread the word on social media. So we have shared a social media template with you, and the aim is to let citizens know that you are taking part in this challenge and to invite citizens to be a part of your team and to support the city in any of the ways that we were listed before. Cities like Jabalpur and Chennai have already done this, and we encourage all the other cities to go ahead in this way. While social and digital media is extremely important, so is the power of print media. We've again shared a print media template with you, and we encourage you all to use both English as well as vernacular newspapers to spread the word within your community. And last, we encourage each one of you all to launch an open streets campaign. So we will be sharing a campaign guide shortly. The aim is to identify locations to launch an on-street campaign, to inform your citizens about when and where this is happening, engage with them while you choose these locations as well, launch the Open Streets campaign with your citizens, and document the happiness as well. So as we come to a close in this first workshop, we'd like to tell you that until the next workshop, we invite you to form diverse teams. You've done this already in Cycles for Change, and we invite you to do the same for Streets for People as well. Spread the word on social media and newspapers. Identify location for pilot interventions using the tools that Shreya had shared in the past. Host an Open Streets campaign. And of course, you all have been fantastic with sending your weekly updates, and we invite you to send them further as well. We've also started a chat group on Telegram, and we invite each one of you all to proactively share your updates there as well. All your team members are welcome to join the Telegram group as well. Streets for People team, from our end, we will share the campaign guide for Open Streets. By mid next week, we will also share the presentation and video of the session, and we will every week share the weekly update form. Thank you so much. So today has been a fantastic start with inspiring stories from all corners of our city. And I'm sure with community-based participation at the center, effective processes for transforming our cities, capitalizing on our local communities' assets, inspiration, and potential, we can all transform our streets into vibrant public spaces that contribute to our health, happiness, and well-being. Let's create an urban revolution by transforming the lives of our cities by creating streets for people. Yeah.
I thought maybe we could also give our other panelists sort of an opportunity to give any closing remarks if they have.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyone from Delhi, Udaipur, Amritsar, and we also have Chennai, if they'd like to have a closing comment.
Sure. I think a few cities have moved. They've had some meetings. Anuj, yeah, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I think we just kind of heard everything, and it was a kind of a great presentation made by Shreya as well. See, one of the things that we have actually experienced in this case while implementation of these kind of projects is that the role of the technical person is extremely important. Because a technical person is able to actually look at various things which are happening on the street, even kind of look at the stakeholders, which otherwise the government officials normally don't talk to or are not able to kind of coalesce with. Like for example, you have different departments taking care of different things. It's virtually kind of impossible for government departments to actually talk to each other. I mean, the system doesn't work like that. But as a technocrat, actually, a technocrat is a very good bridge between all of these things. Not just that, but also give very critical inputs while actually implementing it. So I would actually say that, the reason why you are able to appreciate Delhi's example, or maybe it might become better, I hope with time, is because that the technocrats actually were pretty much empowered by the government themselves, by the ministry, by the municipal corporation, to help them get this implemented in a more holistic manner. Otherwise, to cater to a road design which is being dealt by PWD, and to cater to parking design which is being dealt by MCD, and to cater to traffic management which is dealt by traffic police, to come together of these three things is not a joke actually. In fact, it went so successful that there were 8 court cases which came during the implementation of this project. And you would be happy to know that we won all of those court cases because the court also saw the greater good. So there is some merit to it, I would say. I'm not saying that every time, you need to kind of do it that way. But there is a good amount of merit to actually also empower technocrats and urban designers to actually guide this way to implement these kind of projects.
Thank you, Anuj. And I think it's really important that you've also raised the point over the fact that the journey might not be so smooth, and that we may have to face things like court cases, but boldly and bravely when we do face them and show the benefits associated with these projects, we can definitely win these cases as well. Thank you. So let me also invite Kumar sir from Udaipur. Would you like to make some comments? Or Rahul sir from, yeah. Yes,
I think I'm good. It was a very meaningful session, and went through the session. It was very meaningful, and we had good panel and good suggestions from all the cities, and what you guys discussed. We'll try to implement it and try to plan it properly. So if at all we face any challenge, or we want to seek any guidance from your side, we will let you know.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And so, as we bring our session to a close, I would like to thank all the senior officials, project management consultants, engineers, our community partners, and all the other stakeholders who've also tuned into YouTube, who've been a part of this session. So here is also a poll. Kindly let us know how you would, what your experience was with this workshop. And every time you share your feedback, it's very useful for us to improve the workshops going ahead as well. I'd also take this time to thank the Smart Cities Mission, Mr. Kunal Kumar, Rahul Kapoor, Akriti, and Rohitash, as well as the entire team at Smart Cities Mission, as well as the team at ITDP India Programme, who really supported in ensuring that this particular work is a great progress. Thanks to Mr. Ritesh, Megnath Reddy sir, Anuj Malhotra, Kamar sir, Pradeep Bansal sir, who've also taken time out of their busy schedule to be with us and inspire us today. Thank you so much. Shreya, would you have some last word?
No, I'm good. Thanks a lot. So it's great to see the start off, and we are expecting all the 113 cities that have registered for the challenge to do magic.